There exists within the human spirit a yearning, a deep-seated echo for what we might call indomitable power. It is not the brute force of the conqueror, nor the fleeting dominance of the demagogue. It is something more profound, a resilient strength that bends but does not break, a mastery that arises not from control over others, but from the unfettered command of oneself. This is the power that transcends the superficial, the power that endures the storms of existence. But how does one awaken such a force? What are the hidden currents, the unseen landscapes that shape this indomitable spirit? Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher who danced with both the brightest illuminations and the deepest shadows of human nature, offers not a set of simple rules, but a collection of challenging, often paradoxical insights. He invites us to peer into the abyss, not with fear, but with a critical, questioning gaze. His philosophy is a mirror reflecting back to us uncomfortable truths that can indeed be unsettling, yet hold the very keys to unlocking our latent potential. We are here to explore 7 such shadows. These are not external dictates to be blindly followed, but fundamental aspects of our inner reality, often ignored or suppressed. They are the less acknowledged dimensions of our being, the parts that conventional wisdom might prefer we leave undisturbed. Yet, it is precisely in confronting and integrating these shadows that true, indomitable power begins to awaken. This is a journey not of outward conquest, but of inward navigation, a process of reclaiming sovereignty over the fragmented self. This exploration resonates deeply with the work of Carl Jung, who spoke of the shadow self, the unacknowledged, often repressed aspects of our personality. Jung understood that true psychological wholeness, and therefore true strength, emerges not from the denial of these darker facets, but from their conscious integration. To awaken indomitable power is to embrace this integration, to bring light to the hidden corners of our psyche. It is to understand that our vulnerabilities, when acknowledged, can become the bedrock of our resilience. Our path forward is one of radical self-mastery. It is about decoding the enigma of human nature, not to exploit it, but to understand its deepest currents within ourselves. It is about cultivating an authentic personal power, one that is impervious to external manipulation and the siren calls of fleeting validation. This is the power that allows for intellectual independence, the strength to stand firm in one's own convictions, forged in the crucible of self-examination. It is a profound liberation, a revaluation of what it truly means to be powerful, not through domination, but through an unshakable inner authority. What are these 7 shadows, and how do they beckon us towards our own indomitable spirit? The first shadow we must confront is the pervasive, often invisible pull of the herd. It is a deep-seated instinct, a whisper in the soul that urges us towards conformity, towards the familiar comfort of belonging. We often adopt the values, the beliefs, the very definitions of good and evil that surround us, not through deliberate choice, but through an unconscious fear of standing alone. This is the subtle cage of what Nietzsche identified as slave morality, a system of values born not of strength, but of a reactive need to define oneself against an imagined enemy. In his profound work on the genealogy of morality, Nietzsche unflinchingly dissects this phenomenon. He reveals how the concepts of good and evil are frequently constructs of the weak, designed to exert control over the strong. He observed that everything that is done in love, all truth, all kindness, all humility, all helpfulness, these things have their origin in the fear of the enemy. This fear, this deep-seated anxiety about the other, is the fertile ground from which unexamined conformity grows. It is the invisible hand that guides us towards the safety of the masses, away from the lonely precipice of authentic selfhood. This uncritical adherence to the herd creates a profound internal fragmentation. We begin to live a divided existence where our authentic desires, our true inner voice, is suppressed to align with the external role we feel compelled to play. The psychological comfort found in uniformity. The illusion of safety in numbers becomes a powerful, albeit detrimental, neural-emotional driver that actively resists our path to genuine independence. We become strangers to ourselves, our wills slowly eroded by the constant pressure to belong. The herd instinct, while a fundamental aspect of human nature, can become a profound saboteur of our psychological mastery. To truly awaken indomitable power, the first crucial step is to recognize this shadow. It demands an active, unwavering commitment to critical discernment. We must begin to question the very foundations of our beliefs. Where did these ideas truly come from? Are they mine, or have I simply inherited them from the prevailing narrative? We must identify the societal scripts we have internalized, and with unflinching honesty, understand the psychological cost of this unexamined conformity. This conscious recognition is the genesis of intellectual liberation, the first breath of freedom from the herd's embrace. Consider the concept of the will to power, not as an aggressive urge to dominate, but as an inherent drive to overcome resistance. In our journey towards self-mastery, the greatest resistance we will encounter often comes from within. It is the comfortable inertia of the herd, the deep-seated desire to remain within the familiar fold. True awakening, therefore, begins not with external action, but with the profound inner courage to step outside that comfortable, yet constricting enclosure. It is the courage to question, to doubt, and ultimately to choose oneself. The second shadow that obscures our path to indomitable power is the insidious grip of resentment. It is a corrosive force, a hidden poison that can fester within the soul when we feel wronged, powerless, or unjustly treated. These unacknowledged grievances, these secret wounds, do not simply disappear. They fester, subtly dictating our actions, often masquerading as righteous anger or sophisticated intellectual critique, while in reality they are the chains of our own making. Nietzsche's concept of resentment offers a stark illumination of this shadow. He observed how those who perceive themselves as powerless often engage in a creative act, not of building, but of devaluing. They construct a moral universe where the strong are condemned and the weak are elevated. The slave revolt in morality begins when resentment itself becomes creative and generates values, he wrote. This creative force, born from a sense of injury, is ultimately a destructive one, most profoundly to the individual harboring it. It is a power that consumes from within. This shadow actively fuels internal fragmentation. Instead of engaging in honest self-reflection, we project our disempowerment outwards, finding solace in blaming external forces or individuals. This outward projection prevents us from confronting the true root of our disempowerment. It creates a psychological permeability, making us susceptible to external influences that validate our grievances rather than empowering us to overcome them. The emotional consequence is a perpetual cycle of victimhood, a state where one feels perpetually acted upon rather than acting. To combat this pervasive shadow, we must cultivate a practice of radical honesty with ourselves. This requires the courage to look inward and identify precisely when resentment is subtly guiding our thoughts, our judgments, and our actions. We must ask ourselves, is this critique truly about truth, or is it a veiled expression of an old wound? True power lies not in the externalization of blame, but in the internal transformation of these grievances. It is the difficult, yet essential, act of transforming resentment into a catalyst for self-overcoming, rather than a justification for passive suffering or outward attack. This is not a fleeting thought, but a deep dive into the often turbulent landscape of our own emotions. The shadow of resentment is akin to a hidden parasite, thriving in the dark recesses of the unacknowledged self. It feeds on perceived weakness and artfully masquerades as righteousness, as a moral high ground. To achieve indomitable power, to truly awaken this profound inner strength, one must starve this parasite. This is achieved by embracing an existential truth, that our capacity to act, however limited by circumstances, circumstance is ultimately our own to command. Our power resides in our response, not in the grievance itself. The third shadow we must confront is the pervasive, yet often comforting, illusion that unwavering adherence to conventional goodness is the ultimate form of strength. We are taught from an early age that to be good, to be kind, to be selfless is the highest virtue. Yet Nietzsche, with his characteristic intellectual rigor, challenges the very foundations of this altruistic morality. He suggests that often this rigid conformity to what society deems good is, in fact, a sophisticated manifestation of weakness, a subtle expression of fear, or a reactive defense mechanism. In his seminal work, Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche poses a critical question about the origins of our moral concepts. He probes the nature of the good man, stating, "The good man of the herd is the good man of the herd. He is what he is, and the herd demands that he be so." This reveals a profound truth. The goodness lauded by the masses is often merely a reflection of societal expectation, a performance designed to ensure belonging rather than to express inner conviction. True strength, he argues, lies not in conforming to this externally imposed ideal, but in the courageous act of forging one's own values, of becoming the author of one's own moral compass. This shadow breeds a deep internal division. The authentic, raw drives of life, the very impulses that animate existence, often find themselves in conflict with the imposed mandate to be good. This internal struggle fosters a dangerous psychological dependency on external approval. The good man, constantly seeking validation for his perceived virtue, finds his sense of worth contingent on the opinions of others. This is a fatal illusion for anyone aspiring to authentic power, for it binds one's very being to the fickle tides of external judgment. Awakening from this shadow necessitates a profound revaluation of values. It requires us to engage in the difficult but essential task of discerning between genuine ethical principles, those born from inner strength, conviction, and a deep understanding of oneself, and the reactive, herd-driven morality that so often masquerades as virtue. This is not a call to embrace egoism or to disregard the well-being of others. Rather, it is a powerful summons for conscious, self-authored ethical frameworks that arise from a place of inner integrity and self-mastery, rather than from the fear of being judged bad. The shadow of the good man is, in essence, the comforting lie that safety and virtue lie solely in conformity. Indomitable power, however, is not found in the passive acceptance of societal norms. It is forged in the crucible of self-authorship, in the courageous act of questioning, and in the profound, often unsettling, but ultimately liberating process of redefining the very meaning of good for oneself. It is in this redefinition that true strength is born. The fourth shadow that dims the light of our inner power is the insidious dependency on external validation. In the intricate dance of human connection, our sense of self-worth can become dangerously tethered to the opinions, the approval, and the gaze of others. This reliance transforms us into fragile beings, vulnerable to manipulation and prone to a profound internal fragmentation, where the authentic self is lost in the pursuit of a pleasing facade. Nietzsche, while acknowledging the deep-seated human need for recognition, issued a stark warning against allowing this need to dictate the very essence of our being. He observed that the great man is solitary. He is great precisely because he is solitary. This solitude, however, is not a statement of isolation or misanthropy. Rather, it signifies a profound freedom from the tyranny of the external gaze, freedom from the constant need to perform for an audience. It is the freedom to be without the intermediary of others' judgment. This shadow casts a long, distorting veil over our lives, creating a profound psychological disconnect. We begin to perform our lives for an imagined audience, our actions driven not by an authentic inner core, but by the desire to elicit applause or avoid censure. Our inherent will to power, the fundamental drive to grow and assert ourselves, is siphoned off and dissipated into the relentless pursuit of fleeting external approval. This constant seeking becomes a significant drain on our inner strength, leaving us depleted and hollow. To break free from this pervasive shadow, we must diligently cultivate an internal locus of control. This is the essential work of building psychological resilience and fostering true intellectual independence. It involves the conscious practice of self-affirmation, not through arrogance, but through a grounded recognition of our own values, our own efforts, and our own inherent worth. Independent of external confirmation, we must learn to be our own witness, our own source of affirmation, rather than a perpetual supplicant at the altar of public opinion. The shadow of external validation is like a phantom limb of self-worth. It feels real, it aches for connection, but it is not truly part of our essential being. Indomitable power, that unshakable inner strength, arises not from the fleeting cheers of the crowd, but from the quiet, resolute act of learning to stand on our own. It is the capacity to draw strength from within, to anchor our sense of self in our own core being, unswayed by the fickle, ever-shifting winds of public opinion. This is the true awakening of power. The fifth shadow that obscures our vision of true power is the pervasive, yet deeply comforting, illusion of control that arises from an unexamined life. We move through our days often believing ourselves to be the masters of our destiny, the captains of our souls. Yet beneath this conscious conviction lies a hidden reality. We remain largely unaware of the unconscious forces, the ingrained psychological patterns, and the pervasive societal narratives that truly govern our choices and shape our perceptions. Nietzsche's concept of perspectivism offers a crucial lens through which to understand this shadow. He posited that there are no absolute objective truths waiting to be discovered, but rather a multitude of interpretations, each shaped by the interpreter's unique vantage point. To live an unexamined life is to blindly adopt one dominant perspective, mistaking it for the singular objective reality. As Nietzsche famously stated, there are no facts, only interpretations. When we fail to acknowledge this, we fall prey to the illusion that our singular view is the only view. This profound lack of self-awareness inevitably leads to significant internal fragmentation. Our conscious intentions, our stated goals, often find themselves in direct conflict with our unconscious drives and deeply held, unacknowledged beliefs. This internal dissonance makes us profoundly susceptible to external manipulation, lacking the critical discernment to identify the hidden agendas, the subtle influences, and the underlying motivations that shape our perceived reality. We become easy prey. This is not merely a minor inconvenience. It is a profound psychological vulnerability that erodes our autonomy. Awakening indomitable power, therefore, demands an unwavering commitment to rigorous self-examination. This is not a passive endeavor. It is an active, often arduous, but ultimately essential path. It requires us to confront our own ingrained biases, to meticulously understand our psychological triggers, those unseen buttons that can be pushed to elicit predictable reactions, and to actively seek out and engage with multiple, often conflicting perspectives. This is the arduous but crucial journey towards genuine self-authorship, the reclaiming of our own narrative. The shadow of the unexamined life is the comfortable delusion of agency, the false sense that we are fully in command. True control, the deep wellspring of indomitable power, emerges not from blindly following a prescribed path or from clinging to a single unchallenged perspective. It arises from the conscious, often difficult, but ultimately liberating act of mapping our own way, of understanding the intricate terrain within ourselves and the complex landscape of the world around us. It is in this conscious navigation that genuine power takes root. We have now journeyed through 5 of Nietzsche's profound shadows. We have begun to uncover the insidious nature of herd mentality, that unconscious adherence to conformity that subtly erodes our individuality. We have faced the corrosive corrosive impact of resentment, that festering wound that masquerades as righteousness, blinding us to our own agency. We have questioned the comforting illusion of conventional morality, recognizing that true ethical strength often lies in self-authorship, not blind obedience. We have felt the tyranny of external validation, understanding how our yearning for approval can render us vulnerable and fragmented. And finally, we have confronted the deception of an unexamined life, the subtle illusion of control that masks a profound unawareness of the forces that truly govern us. These are not merely obstacles to be eradicated, not specters to be banished from our psyche. Rather, they are fundamental, often uncomfortable aspects of the human condition. They are the very raw material from which true strength is forged. When we approach these shadows not with fear, but with understanding and a commitment to integration, they transform. They become the bedrock of indomitable power. This is the essence of Nietzsche's philosophy of self-overcoming, the relentless pursuit of becoming more than we are, the path towards the Urmensch, the overman. The path forward, illuminated by these insights, demands a conscious and sustained engagement with these shadows. It requires the courage to question deeply, not just the world around us, but the very foundations of our own beliefs and assumptions. It calls for the discipline to engage in profound self-reflection, to probe the depths of our own motivations and desires. Most importantly, it demands the unwavering will to forge our own values, to define our own truths, and in doing so, to achieve authentic self-mastery and radical intellectual independence. This is the act of becoming the author of your own existence. As Nietzsche himself so powerfully proclaimed, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. By confronting these shadows, by daring to look into the abyss and not flinch, we transform potential weaknesses into sources of unparalleled resilience. We convert perceived vulnerabilities into the very foundations of our authentic power. This embrace of life's challenges, this profound acceptance and love of one's fate, is the spirit of amor fati. It is through this loving affirmation of all that is, both light and shadow, that true strength is cultivated. The true awakening of indomitable power, therefore, lies not in escaping these shadows, not in seeking a life free from internal struggle. It lies in learning to navigate them with wisdom, with unwavering strength, and with an unshakable inner compass. It is in this courageous navigation, this conscious engagement with the totality of our being, that we become the true architects of our lives, the sovereign rulers of our own destiny. The power is not out there, it is within, awakened by the courage to embrace the shadows.